Welcome to Kuti, a podcast where people from endangered and indigenous language communities around the world come together to share their experiences, challenges, and successes. In today's episode, we're talking about language revitalization projects and the work communities are doing to keep their languages strong. What kinds of projects are taking shape in our communities? What has worked well and what has been more challenging than expected? We're joined by Welmoed Sjoerdstra, who works at Afûk, the Organization for Frisian Language, and is also a researcher at Stenden University of Applied Sciences, where she develops curricula for secondary and vocational education as part of the Multilingualism Literacy research group. We're also joined by Çiya Tabar, a member of the Kurdish community currently living in Bilbao, who's deeply passionate about his language and culture. In this episode, we explore how small grassroots projects can make a real difference in our communities and how they can grow into something much bigger. Enjoy!
Hoi, ik ben Welmoed Sjoerdstra. Ik praat Fries en ik praat Westerlouwers-Fries. Dat is het Fries dat praten we in het noorden van Nederland, in de provincie Friesland. So that was me saying hi, I'm Welmoed Sjoerdstra. I'm a speaker of Frisian and Frisian of Westerlouwers Frisian and that type of Frisian is spoken in the north of the Netherlands. So yeah.
ناوی من چیایه از کرمانجی داخل مالباتا me و کمیونیتی me کردی باکور ترکی دژن و افنیسکی پاز سال من از اسپانیا دژن و زمان خو و تکلیه خونی زمان خو هندره اسپانیا و باسکیچی دکم. My name is now I will just switch to English. My name is Çiya. I speak Kurdish from northern Turkey, and my main community is in Turkey, but I'm based in Spain more than 15 years, and I have some friends, some contacts here in Spain, but I don't have a strong community in Spain.
So yourself, you are from the northern Turkey, or you come from Turkey and are now living in Spain?
Maybe I said wrong. I am from southeast. Maybe I said it wrong in English. I am from my family from southeast of Turkey, and that's mainly where they speak Kurdish. Now, most of my family, they live in the main cities of Turkey, like Istanbul, Izmir, and we have a big communities there. In Spain, where I live, in northern Spain, I don't have a real community in here. And most of my time or life, I spend it outside of Kurdish community or where the Kurdish people and Kurdish widely spoken areas. So I've been living in Istanbul, Ankara, in Turkey, the capital of Turkey, and in different parts of Spain.
And is Kurdish your native language? Did you grow up in it?
I grew up in it, as I put it in the introduction, but I haven't been, apart from the family and oral transmission, I couldn't learn the language through the school, or I couldn't learn the language in a more academic way. So it is mostly oral skills. I will consider it as my mother tongue, because that's the first language I was exposed to. And after I started in Istanbul, the school, then it switched to more Turkish and more academic language.
Yeah, it's similar for me with Frisian. I grew up in Frisian. My parents are both Frisian, and I'm from a pretty Frisian region within the province of Friesland. But Frisian is not being taught in schools very well. It's widely used in areas, but it's not formally used. So formally, people switch to Dutch. So from the age of 4, you just switch from always speaking Frisian with your parents, and then you go to primary education, and then it's mostly in Dutch. Nowadays, it's changing a little bit, but for me as well, that's when Dutch came, and then I learned to speak Dutch really well, and Frisian not as much. And I learned better Frisian later on when I was 19, 18, yeah.
While you were being taught in Dutch at school, did you used to keep the language with your family, the Frisian language?
Yes. Yeah, we still speak Frisian also with friends, and it's quite strong in small communities in Frisian. But it's just usually when one Dutch speaker comes in, when you're in a group with Frisian speakers, and then a Dutch speaker comes in, then everybody switches automatically to Dutch. Sadly, because the language is not that far from Dutch, so it's quite easy to pick up for Dutch speakers.
And another curiosity, because the Frisian area, I can imagine that the teachers who taught you Dutch, they probably speak, or some of them may speak Frisian. So as a child, if you respond in Frisian, like very basic things, like greetings, etc., will they respond you in Frisian or in Dutch? Like, I don't know if you remember that.
I think around the time that I grew up, most would respond in Dutch because Dutch was supposed to be the language of the school and you had to learn Dutch in the school. But right now, there's quite some actions going on in our province to give Frisian, well, not give Frisian a stronger position because Frisian already has lawfully quite a strong position for a minority language. But even though it has been in the law that Frisian should be taught in primary and secondary education since the 80s, this was not done well by schools, and there was no consequence for a school if they didn't teach any Frisian, because the educational inspectorate there wouldn't be a consequence for them. And right now we're working on a really big plan. We call it Taalplan Friesk 2030, Language Plan Frisian 2030. And in that plan we work together with schools to make sure that they teach Frisian, that they have it in their curriculum in a certain way that fits the population, that fits the specific region. So yeah, it's quite some big developments going on.
In my case, when I was living in Istanbul, there mostly the teachers were only Turkish speakers, so they wouldn't even contest me. But I don't have the memory of that time. But I think it was the first time like officially being exposed to Turkish for me. And I don't even remember at home. My mother, for sure, she was speaking, and my dad as well, to us Kurdish, and everything like I had it in Kurdish. But when we were outside world, then like the real Turkish started. And for us, mainly the teachers that we had, they would only speak to Turkish because they didn't have any knowledge of Kurdish.
Are Turkish and Kurdish, are they closely related or are they really different?
That's I was curious about that because from this, when I hear the Frisian, I see some similarities, or at least how it sounds. But for us, the roots of the language, they are totally different, and it's quite difficult to understand the words, except from the long words, like the words that we take from Turkish or some other similar common languages in the area. Then there is no possibility to understand the language. So it's also, in that sense, when I was living in Istanbul, it was an abrupt disconnection with other peoples if I started to speak Turkish, and it's not mutually intelligible in that sense, I would say. And it makes it even harder because when we even start to speak between ourselves or some friends that we know Turkish, then they would be out of context and we have to switch to Turkish.
Yeah, fair enough. It makes it a lot harder.
Yeah, and what about, as I said, is it mutually intelligible for you are in Frisian area? I was just reading the population because I think it was more than 50% that could understand the Frisian, right? Or they could even speak. And what about the Frisian people? I mean, not Dutch people, because we are talking about in your area, like the Frisian people, they don't speak Frisian language, and they can understand when you speak to them in Frisian. Is the case for you?
You mean when I speak Frisian to someone who is from the Netherlands but doesn't speak Frisian?
In your area, in your community in Friesland, when you speak to someone who doesn't understand Frisian or who doesn't speak Frisian language, would that person be able to understand you, get the basics?
They can grasp quite a bit because it's not that far away from Dutch, but that's also because Frisian has the way people speak Frisian now is way more similar to Dutch. It has evolved to be more similar to Dutch because, well, words get lost because they are not used that much. So right now, Dutch and Frisian are not that well. They're different languages, but there are quite some similarities. So for many people, I think they would grasp and be able to understand quite a lot of Frisian. And the longer that they stay in the area, usually I hear that after a couple of weeks of paying attention and hearing, they can grasp a lot of things from the context, and then they learn to understand Frisian quite fast. So understanding is usually not a problem, but if they want to start speaking it in the end, that's a much bigger step.
This is really curious, and going back to the topic that we have about our language revitalization, even within the Kurdish people. I'm not talking about like Turkish. Some Turkish people also, they are interested in learning Kurdish. But even I met with a lot of Kurdish people from diaspora and also outside of the, let's say, Turkish Kurdish area. Officially, where I come from belongs to Turkish state. When they want to, and I met with a lot of people from different kind of studies, when they want to start with the language, Kurdish language, because they haven't learned the language from the childhood, no matter what the reason behind, okay, and they start they start very enthusiastically, but the language is so hard, like the roots and the mutually not intelligible languages, that they start with high expectations, and eventually, when they haven't learned, in that sense, I feel lucky, they cannot continue with the language. And that's also what happens to it, especially because we have a lot of people in diaspora. When I compare the figures that Frisian with Kurdish, the figures are quite different, the numbers, but also we have another fact that the differences of the people, because there are mostly individual actions and how you want to progress with the language. There are like so many differences and different layers of the language level. When I want to get a certain type of connection or community or doing stuff in Kurdish, it is indeed very hard for us to get a sense of community, even online or in diaspora, etc., because there are a lot of people speaking language, a lot of people, but they are stuck in very basic levels of the language. And what I get also lost, because the numbers, like we are talking in total, maybe more than 30, 40 millions of people, but also I really get lost. And in that sense, I just see like your example and your area where you are coming from, even with the less number of people and population who talks the language, I see the progress is much more higher, and it seems like the sunny side of what you have, and mine is like more pessimistic side of what I have. And like the community actions or any kind of doing any stuff for learning language, gathering together, it always gave me like a certain dilemma, and I don't know where I am. And I feel my age, with all the experience that I had, feel very lost in that sense with the Kurdish revitalization, except my stubbornness and I'm trying to transmit the language to my kids, always trying to keep the language, Kurdish language, with my family, with certain bonds, ties that I have, and friends, some friends. But apart from that, I couldn't do more cultural things that I would like to do. And I cannot really continue because I cannot find maybe the right people, in that big ocean. So that's a little bit my situation.
Yeah, it sounds like a complicated situation. If you think of your minority language and how in an ideal world, what would you want to see happen? How would you like to help the language?
I had some notes. For example, I put some examples of the official openness in the notes that were by Turkish state, but also there were other openness that I noted in here. That we have a channel which is for kids without any political context, let's say, ideally, and it's only involved for kids, and it has been more than a decade. And I do really enjoy it. And I also, with my kids, I have a lot of toddler books. I read them a lot. And sometimes I say to myself, I would love to have them to be translated, some of the books that I really love, into Kurdish. Of course, I don't have phones. I don't have the full energy to start with that. For example, that's one example. And the other one that I put it in the notes, that as in diaspora and where I live in Basque Country, I don't have a real community. I have some Kurdish friends, but that fact that I mentioned about the different layers of the language, we cannot really do stuff in Kurdish language within certain or advanced level things. So that will be another thing that in Spain, at least in Spain, a gathering, an online gathering, like a periodic gathering, that where we can talk a very different topics, and that's something that at least for this year, and thanks to IGA in August, something that I would like to initiate. I don't know how far it will go. Probably, again, another frustration, but that's one thing that at least I would like to see. But the big picture, I cannot see because it's a huge community without real, not abstract, like tangible, real stuff going on. So I really get lost within the big picture regarding my Kurdish community.
I can imagine that. You don't really have an infrastructure that you can use, that you can build on.
Even that was also another question that, for example, I see as a sunny side your examples, and I was really curious because I think you work half time at an association, right? Like a kind of linguistic association, and you can do stuff. I think this is you get paid for that, and this is like your work.
It's very luxurious. Yes, it's perfect. It's I realize that we're really lucky with this. I work 2.5 days in a week. I work at Afûk, which is the organization for our Frisian language. Our organization exists since 1928, so it's almost 100 years old, and it started as an organization for teaching people Frisian, really general. And since 100 years ago, it has developed into an organization that still teaches everybody Frisian, but in many different ways. So going from young children to primary education, secondary education, higher education, courses for adults, but also we do projects in language promotion, in making sure in campaigns, for example, campaigns for businesses, campaigns for young people, stuff like that. We also have a bookstore, and we publish Frisian books and books about Frisian that we sell in our own bookstore. So it's essentially for everything and anything. If you want to do something with Frisian, you should come to us because we're the place to go. And I have really talented colleagues that know a lot about Frisian language revitalization, know a lot. Yeah, I've learned a lot from my colleagues in that respect. Some of my colleagues already work at the organization for more than 20 years, so they have a lot of knowledge about how can you do projects, how can you get funding for projects, how can you work together in international projects. And also, something that I've really learned from my one colleague of mine is that it can be really overwhelming to be working with minority languages because there's so much to gain and there's so much to work on. And in the perfect world, you would do everything because everything is good for the language. But there's only so much you can do because there's only so much time. And I'm really happy that I'm able to speak with my colleagues about this, that this can be frustrating, but that in talking to each other about it, you can really feel thankful and feel happy for the things that you have accomplished. So even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it, you can look back together and think, okay, this was not exactly how we expected this project to go, but what we did manage to do was this and this and this, and we're really happy with that.
Understand. And when you say, because that's how I feel, there's some small steps. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I just forget the small steps and maybe focus on like big pictures, and I don't know exactly where to start. That's one of the things that I say, or where it goes to, or what I will do, how useful it will be, and
Yeah.
that's also discourages me a lot when I want to start anything with my own language, because as I said, your situation and my case is quite different, but I really like the different perspectives because I can gain with that. In my case, I am totally. I live in the diaspora. I live outside of my community. Here, I don't feel that support. Even like it's not fully related to budget, the funds, etc. But emotionally, also feeling that support. And even when I talk to that kind of like initiatives to my family, they will say, just focus on your work. You have to grow up your kids, and why are you dealing with that kind of extra things? Don't spend time. They cannot even understand me. So from your perspective, it's like very opposite side. But and I don't know how to take like small steps. That's where I get lost, and I don't know what to do, because sometimes I did some small initiatives in here. Again, most of the kids, they were bus kids, or most of the bus kids, they would understand me, they would give me support, but again alone, because they wouldn't communicate with me, of course, with my language, and it's not the case in here that I'm gonna teach or give basics to anyone. It will be just a small experience that they will take it, but it will go nowhere. And in that sense, I get really lost.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I do think, yeah, but that's also something that I choose to believe, that every small step helps and that every interaction in the minority language helps in giving the minority language a stronger position, and every time making someone else aware of the fact that there is the minority language, and the fact that you can just speak it and that you can do things in that language, that really helps me. We have, for example, we have a lot of different projects, and in those projects we also really like to make, for example, small cards or small poems. And for myself personally, last year I joined a course on writing, a writing course. And it's a creative writing course. And I don't live in the Frisian region myself. I live in the Dutch region, but I really wanted to do it in Frisian, so that's what I did. And now I found out that I really like writing, and I really like writing poetry. I didn't know that first. And for me, it's a really honest decision that I want to write that in Frisian, and I'm not going to do it in another language. Maybe sometime I could translate it, but it's my decision that I write what I write in Frisian because that's my language. And sometimes we at our work we develop a lot of school materials or any material, and you, for example, I'm holding a card now. We made these little cards for secondary education. So in this card, it's an angel, but it's also, what is the word in English? With the dots. A ladybug, I think. So it's a ladybug and it's an angel. And the thing is, in Dutch, a ladybug would be lieve heersbeestje. And a lot of Frisians also say lieve heersbeestje because they think it's the same word. But there's actually a different word in Frisian, which is engeltje. And engeltje is also the Frisian word for small angel. So also engeltje. So cards like these, it's really small, a small illustration with text on it, but it's quite an eye catcher. And I have these things in my bag. Also cards with poems. So every time I'm in a place where they have maybe like a board that you can pin things on, or you can place things on. It's usually in libraries and places like that. I really like to put some Frisian out there, and then each time I do that, it's my own small act of there can be more Frisian in this room, and then then there is. I really like that.
If I do that in Spain in the at the libraries, it will take like years to discover which language it is. But I really like the idea. Even I can send. I'm thinking about that. Family, friends, some even associations that I have. Because that's also some small steps. Sometimes I'm thinking about, for example, why some children books they cannot be translated to Kurdish that I really enjoyed a lot while I've been reading to my kids. And it's like much more effort. And if I focus on some small steps like a postcard that you show me, which is much more easier for kids, it's full fun that I can send to different places, and it doesn't need even big effort in sense of the energy or intellectual part with a small point or whatever.
Exactly.
You can reach to more, and that's exactly what happens to me. I get really lost because maybe your initial question, but I want to see it. I want to see much more progress, but with small steps, I can go further. And I really like the postcards.
Thanks. Yeah. We really liked them too. It was a really cool project to work on. But we're really happy here, or I'm really happy that I'm able to be making this type of projects and to be doing this type of things for the Frisian language.
Maybe also it would be nice, at least after we finish this talk, Welmoed, that some of the not big projects, but the small projects where in an individual action or even if I manage to make the community that I would like to share in Spain, what we can do and take some samples of what you have.
Could be really nice. Yeah. I think it's also really important if you talk about community. I think the most important thing is that for me it always feels a sort of like a flame, as if I have a flame in me, which is the Frisian language, and if I'm able to set somebody else on fire, essentially, with the Frisian language, then I'm really happy. So for every person that I know, they have a different relationship with the Frisian language, and some people are very love the language and speak it a lot, and other people don't really like it that much. But in all of those people, I really like to talk with them about it and to make them realize that it's quite special that we have multiple languages here, and that it's really special to be able to speak Frisian at all, and that they don't have to be ashamed of speaking a minority language, but it's actually really cool. And the moment that I'm in a conversation with somebody and I see that idea pop up in their head, and I see them becoming excited about their language and their identity, I think that's what gives me the most energy as well, because that's essentially why I do it. And then in the end, maybe that other person that I talk with, maybe they also decide to put on cards in Frisian, or that maybe they decide to write their postcard in Frisian instead of in Dutch. And then I'm really happy. That's my goal. It's quite small, but it's also quite important. I think it's the most important thing.
No, I really like the idea, and maybe that flame that you mentioned, especially if I want to lit the fire or with the Kurdish people based in Spain, that could be like small actions that we keep as a community, and we can do stuff here together. Although, and that's also another challenging part, here in Spain, most of the people with whom that I think that I can do things together, we are not physically so close to each other. That will be another challenge, but hopefully all these technologies it will help us to maintain a periodical relationship, I believe.
Yeah, sounds good, and it sounds doable. It sounds something that it sounds realistic.
Yeah, it sounds, but as I said, my most experience, it's like frustrating people. Like we get that point, why do I even bother? Because I know that's my reality and I live with that. And I did stuff up until here, and why I should continue? Because functionally, or especially when you live, and I also understand, for me, like 16 years living here, it's a language that only I find some friends, family, of course, when I talk to my family, some friends in Turkey that we speak in Kurdish, doesn't have any specific function in any sense. So I also understand that people say, why do I even bother? I should focus on learning other languages, try to find a decent job, do other stuff, and people, it diminishes, the flame that you mentioned, it just disappears.
Well, we made the postcards together with another project, which is this. This is the most recent thing. This is a small book that we wrote for secondary education, and we really like it. I'm really proud of it because it's, as I said, in our language, the influences of Dutch is really big. So a lot of words get lost, and usually people speak Frisian, but with a lot of Dutch words. So that is essentially sort of like a Frisian Dutch mixture, and it's not entirely Frisian. So to solve that, we wrote a small booklet, and in that booklet there's a lot of pictures and there's a lot of sentences with examples of nice Frisian words that would otherwise be forgotten. And there's also some explanation parts of differences between Frisian and Dutch, things that could be more Frisian if you want to. And I also wrote this. I wrote this with colleagues, and we also did that because when I was in primary and secondary education myself, I was with my friends. I was always speaking Frisian, but everything formally is in Dutch. So school and work and most places were in Dutch. And then I went to university, and then in university I found out that it was quite special that we were speaking Frisian, and I got more interested in it. And then I also looked up more information on how to speak better Frisian and what sources are available. And there wasn't really a source that is really like a first step that is easy to use, that is fun, that is short, that is concise. Because most of the things that were made were, or they were really old, or they were specifically targeted towards researchers, so Frisists, which are experts in Frisian linguistics, for example. So that's why we made this, and I'm really happy with it. And we made, because we found so many new words for ourselves too, words and other parts of idiom. And we thought, these words are so nice and we have a specific image with them, and that's why we also made the cards, because we could. And it's, really happy with them.
One question, Welmoed, about the book. I really like that because that's another fact that we have in Kurdish. We have so many influences of other languages. In our case, mostly Turkish, where I come from. Also, other languages like Persian and Arabic as well. And sometimes when I was even with friends, that we speak, I suppose, the Kurdish, but it was so mixed with Turkish that we would make fun of ourselves while we speak.
Yeah.
And for example, in that book that you mentioned, is it a book that is for people just get it at the library, or you have, I think you told me that you have kind of bookstore, right, in the association, or people just can take it, or you just sell the book, and how is the reaction of the people, if they, if they have to pay some amount and they say, hey, it's not necessary, why we should buy it, or people just can take it and borrow it, and how do you do the edition and all these things that I have in my mind?
Well, so we developed it for secondary education school materials, and also for selling it in the bookstore for anyone who has an interest in Frisian. And for the use in secondary education, in the Netherlands, we have subsidies for teaching Frisian. So there's specific subsidies for schools that they can use, and they can order materials. So for schools, that's solved for us for the biggest part, which is really nice. And it's also in our bookstore and in other bookstores in the province. Just a regular bookstore, they usually have a really small, like, Frisian corner, and there it's also sold. And so far, what I've heard were really positive reactions. But then it's usually from people that they already like Frisian, so they're already a bit interested in the language, and then this is perfect. But at the same time, I don't mind that. I think it's really important that for all of the different people in Friesland, we offer something with Frisian that they like. So whether it is short form online content in Frisian, or whether it's complicated books, or whether it's this, I think it's really important that we offer a lot of things, and for the people that are already interested in Frisian, this is perfect. For people that are not that into Frisian, that they won't be interested in this, but that's okay. You can't please everyone.
No, that's impossible. I said that I really like that one as well, but that will be a big step to prepare something like that. It will take, yeah.
Yeah, I
Nice.
can imagine for starting out that things online are much more doable. So, for example, earlier we worked on a project on Wikipedia. And then in that project, we worked together with Irish partners and also partners from the Basque country. And the project was called Wiki Women, and we developed teaching materials in which high school students, wrote Wikipedia articles about notable women from their region. So in the minority language. So they had to do research, and then they had to write an article in the minority languages, and then that would be posted online on Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is open source and everyone can edit. And it was a really fun project that lasted like 3 years. And afterwards, because of the project, I also learned how to work with Wikipedia. So now every time I find a Wikipedia page that is not in Frisian yet, then I think, okay, it's time. And then I go translate it to Wikipedia, because then we have more Wikipedia pages in Frisian. It's also a small act of being able to write something and to publish it, but then much more doable than doing it in print.
As I said initially, for me, when I do write in my language, I don't fully feel comfortable. And that's another, writing like an article or something in a Wikipedia, it should be very short or brief introduction, something that was not maybe mentioned or not translated to Kurdish. That could be a small action. If I try to focus on like a big article, then I wouldn't feel fully comfortable with my language.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I found from the all ideas that Welmoed had, seem to me all of them perfect, but some of them are not feasible, not doable. This stage, of course, because I can understand that without funds or any subsidies, I cannot spend all myself and doing stuff. But small actions that I will definitely try. And also one of the goals that I have, try to, even with 2 or 3 people, get a very small community where I have similar ideas and do small actions within where I live now, and that will be, I think, my main goal. And I really like the basic things that I can use, and also I can also encourage people and feel more connected with Kurdish language. So that will be also another take for me. But as I said before, I feel quite pessimistic with the progress and the things that I do, because mostly it's not so consistent, the experience that I have had with the people, because they are all individual actions, and people normally, the Kurdish community, people from Kurdish community, they get also very tired and frustrated, because people can appreciate, people can understand you, but it's also taking time, effort, and it's not somehow rewarded directly. So I don't know what can be the reward, but it's not your work. It's full of extra work and energy. And sometimes even that's also happened to us, because I just gave an example from my family, but also it happens to us that people with a lot of different contexts and different ideas, as you said, Welmoed, with some people, they don't like it. But in our case, people are very harsh on our people, and that's really a very sad fact about our reality, that we should focus on more serious things, more maybe political aspects, more that we are just doing like kind of game, and that goes nowhere. So people cannot understand the impact of, and that's also very frustrating and very frustrating.
Do you think maybe that if you get a small community, that maybe you can get the satisfaction from each other? That, for example, if you talk with others about it, and they might feel the same, I think they will. I can imagine that it would help that you tell each other that it does make sense to do it this way, and that it is a good thing to work for your language, and to pay attention to it and to care for it. I think for me, every time I'm not really sure about it, and then I ask or my colleagues who work in the same field, or I ask my friends who are also interested in the language, and then we talk to each other about it, and that really helps.
Yeah,
because it makes you feel that you're not alone.
Let me see if I understand you correctly. Like find a base, an alignment spot that we can, at least when we just want to continue with the community, at least have a certain alignment and understanding beforehand, before we go further. Because sometimes it can be the case that with small people, of course, that is my main idea, because I don't want to go with a lot of people, getting people. Also, I have contacts from the different parts of the Europe and Turkey. If I try to make again big steps, like a big community, or trying to make as inclusive as possible, then a lot of noise also coming out, and a lot of different opinions, and that makes it also like start again with a small community, that at least we have the same understanding about what we want to do with our language. And then
I think with a small community you can already do that, and I think that would be really helpful, because then you don't have to feel like you're working on it alone, but you're working with a small group, and it's important.
As your community, did you also encounter any Kurdish people, taking examples? Because I know that not in Friesland, but in the Netherlands, there are also a lot of Kurdish people. So if they took any examples, and also in Belgium, or they visit your center, your association, and the linguistic facts, etc.
I have not, no. I have I don't know any Kurdish people besides you. I think most Kurdish people that live in the Netherlands, I think they live more in the city areas. So in the like Amsterdam, Rotterdam city, that's like a whole city area in the Netherlands. I think there.
I don't want to, I think I will just keep with that takeaway. I can also get to you, keep in touch to get more insights, at least online, and see how I can make it work maybe within 2 months or 3 months if I make it work on my side in Spain with Kurdish community. That's one of my main takeaway. And I really like, as I said, when I read only the introduction, it was the sunny side of the why do I even bother? Because when you have all these nice reactions and the progress within your community, it gives you even more energy, and you feel like, hey, this is going somewhere, and you feel you want to do more. So that's my two main takeaways from your side.
Yeah, for me, I think most important in building a community or keeping a community is that you can't really force anything on somebody. I think it's important that it is somebody else's own decision what they want to do with or without a language, even though it's you might disagree with that. And I also, something that I learned over the past couple of years of working in language promotion is that sometimes, especially when you work with other people, before you work with other people or you meet people, you don't know what the effect is going to be. So if you work with somebody on a Frisian project, for example, you might, well, I usually have an expectation, and usually nothing like my expectation happens, but something else completely weird maybe something that I didn't expect happens, but that might also be good for the language, because that I think that usually means that person has given the minority language some thought and given their stance on it some thought, and I think that's really important. And usually when that happens, my immediate reaction is not a positive feeling, because usually I am disappointed because I feel like my efforts aren't working. But then I take a step back and I think again, and then I think, okay, but it has worked, but just in a different way, and it's just as good.